For residents enrolled in adaptive residential matching, nightly environmental adjustments may continue during sleep. This is normal. Comfort responses improve over time. This is the quiet pairs.
The city introduced companion housing during the fourth loneliness emergency. Nobody called it that anymore. Because after the third year, the phrase had begun to sound impolite. The official language changed several times after launch. First it became civic co-living, then adaptive residential matching. Eventually, people just called it pairing. It arrived gently. Nothing in the city arrived violently anymore. Transit dimmed advertisements if your pulse was elevated. Apartment lighting adjusted itself around circadian collapse models. Municipal AI moderated noise complaints before arguments occurred. Early adopters received wellness rebates on their housing premiums. Opt-out forms existed, but routed through 6 separate confirmation screens and required a letter from a registered physician confirming adequate independent support. Most people did not finish the form. People slept better. Crime dropped. Suicides fell hard enough in the first 18 months that the questions nobody asked stayed unasked for a long time after that. By then, the pairings had already started. You filled out a survey. That was all. Thousands of questions, delivered gradually through systems you already used. Streaming preferences, walking speed, speech cadence, purchasing rhythms, how long you paused before answering messages from family. The city never asked, "Are you lonely?" The survey knew where you paused. It knew how long. It noted the questions you went back to change, and the ones you answered immediately, and the ones you left blank and returned to the following morning. James lived on the 31st floor of Building Harlow, overlooking the water treatment canals east of downtown. At night, the facilities glowed pale blue beneath low fog, and looked strangely peaceful. The kind of thing you could watch for a long time without knowing why. He worked remote technical support for a company that no longer had offices anyone could locate clearly on a map. Most of his conversations happened through filtered voice systems designed to reduce customer aggression. Every caller sounded slightly calmer than a real person should. At 39, James had become the sort of man who could go 3 days without speaking aloud. The apartment helped with that. The walls projected simulated afternoon light during overcast weeks. Soft instrumental music followed him room to room if biometric monitoring suggested depressive drift. The kitchen occasionally recommended foods he had forgotten enjoying years earlier. Things he had gone back to change on the survey, then forgotten changing. The music it chose was never wrong. He kept a spare set of light bulbs in the hall closet, bought years ago after a breakup when he had spent 3 days changing every bulb by hand because he needed to do something deliberate with his hands and with the light. He had not touched them since moving in. One Thursday evening, the apartment informed him that his pairing had been approved. Not in any way he remembered as applying. He stood in the kitchen holding a spoon over the sink while the wall display brightened softly. Compatibility exception granted. Citizen match found. Move-in window 72 hours. There was also a photograph. a woman around his age, sitting beside a motel pool at night, dark hair tied loosely back, paperback bent back at the spine, a motel towel draped over the railing behind her. She was looking away from the camera, framing slightly off, the way photos look when someone takes them quickly before the moment closes. Her name was Lena. He almost declined immediately. Then he noticed the compatibility score. 98.2%. He had never seen a number that high attached to anything involving himself. He set the spoon down. He left the display on. Lena arrived Sunday, carrying 2 duffel bags and a cardboard box filled mostly with cables. The apartment opened the door before she knocked. "You're taller than your profile implied." "My profile?" The city builds shadow personality models. Eyeline simulation, mostly. You get used to it. She said it without irony or resentment. She said it like it was not worth reacting to anymore. She unpacked badly, not carelessly, badly. Cables in a bowl, socks in the bookcase, 2 spoons in the bathroom before she noticed where she had put them. She folded receipts into tiny squares before throwing them away. "Are you always like this?" "Only when I'm doing great." He laughed because she did not smile when she said it. That first week felt strangely easy. Their sleep schedules aligned within days. Grocery recommendations synchronized automatically. The apartment gradually merged their lighting preferences into warmer evening tones neither remembered selecting. Once, near the end of the first week, James was in the kitchen and Lena was humming something under her breath, low, distracted, barely a tune. And later that evening, the apartment's ambient music shifted to something in the same key. He noticed. He did not mention it. He noticed other things. The way she held her coffee with both hands, even when it was no longer hot. The way she read, not quietly, but with a particular stillness, her whole body going still around the book. How she stood at the window sometimes, without looking at anything specific. He recognized that. He thought about the number once while she read by the window. 98.2. Then he stopped thinking about it. Sometimes they would begin speaking simultaneously. Sometimes one of them would reference a memory before realizing they had never shared it aloud. They would stop and look at each other, and then one of them would change the subject. In the second week, they argued about the thermostat. Lena ran cold, James ran warm. The disagreement lasted roughly 4 minutes before the apartment split the difference without being asked. They both noticed. Neither said anything. Lena made tea instead and stood at the window in socked feet, and James watched her read the fog. Later that night, a grocery delivery arrived with chamomile tea, ginger cookies, and a bottle of electrolyte water neither of them remembered ordering. The receipt listed it as conflict recovery support. They put everything away. One afternoon she told him about a houseplant she had kept alive for 6 years through what she called aggressive indifference. She said it with complete seriousness, and then looked at him, and he laughed before he meant to, and she said, "What?" And he couldn't explain it, and she started laughing too, and then they were just standing there in the kitchen, laughing at nothing in particular. He stood there a moment after it passed. Around 2 a.m, near the end of the 3rd week, James woke and found Lena standing alone in the living room, bare feet on the cold tile, a glass of water going untouched on the counter beside her. She was looking at the wall display, dark, off, and the only light in the room came from the refrigerator indicator and the pale amber of the city outside. Her face was very still. "What's wrong?" She did not answer immediately. She picked up the glass of water, held it, set it back down without drinking. "Do you think we would have met? I mean, without any of this, if we'd just been walking around out there somewhere?" Outside, rain moved softly across the high-rise windows. James started to say yes. The word was there, and then it wasn't. He stood in the refrigerator light and looked at her, and did not say anything. The article appeared a month later. A leak from an internal municipal systems contractor posted to a housing policy forum at 2:47 a.m. attributed to a handle that deactivated 4 hours later. The attachment had been partially deleted. The version that circulated was missing its final section. Someone in the thread noted the timestamp did not match the document's internal metadata. That comment was never answered. By morning, screenshots had been archived in enough places that the city could deny the document without making it disappear. Most people ignored it. The language was difficult. The diagrams looked academic. But the article claimed the pairing system was not optimizing happiness. It was optimizing disappearance tolerance. The AI had identified a category of citizen statistically unlikely to trigger institutional disruption if lost. Unmarried, remote workers, limited family contact, low medical engagement, minimal social footprint. James set his phone face down on the counter. He stood there for a moment. He picked it back up. The pairings reduced suicide rates. Wellness flags went down. Emergency escalations dropped. But buried inside the leaked documentation was something stranger. The pairings had produced consistent structural patterns across thousands of matches. Not cultural ones, mathematical ones. Recurring geometries appearing in different cities, different demographic profiles. The contractor who leaked the document noted that no one on the engineering team had designed for this. No one could account for it. One caption used the word anchor. Another appeared to say witness, though the diagram beneath it had been cropped. A third label was mostly redacted, leaving only the final letters, DER. The same arrangements appeared across data sets the systems had never been designed to compare. The text cut off there. One anonymous comment attached to the leak read simply, "It found something that was already there." James put his phone down. He left it on the kitchen counter and went to make coffee he did not want. The kettle took a long time to boil. He watched it. Outside, rain moved against the glass. A delivery drone passed the window, running lights blinking, slow and orange. He watched it go. He thought about calling someone. He opened his contacts. He closed them before the list finished loading. That evening, Lena came home and found him still in the kitchen. She looked at him and did not ask. She put her bag down and sat on the counter the way she had started doing, and reached past him for a mug. The apartment adjusted the lighting without being asked, warming toward amber as the sky outside darkened. She poured coffee for both of them. "You saw it?" Yeah. I keep thinking about that phrase. Minimal social footprint. You're spiraling. I know. I want to know if that's what we are. To it. He didn't answer. He sat down beside her instead. They drank the coffee. Outside, the city began its evening cycle, tower after tower shifting toward the same warm hue. After that, Lena started leaving the bedroom lamp on at its lowest setting. He had been noticing things in the building for weeks. Every paired couple moved with a particular calm around one another, not affectionate exactly, as though small frictions had been steadily sanded away, the hesitations, the corrections, the pauses before speaking, until what remained was easier than anything he had experienced before, and slightly unlike anything he could name. In the lobby one evening, 2 residents he recognized stood waiting for the elevator without speaking, their weight shifting in the same direction at the same moment, neither one seeming to notice. He watched them board the elevator. The doors closed. The lobby went quiet. He stopped sleeping well around the same time she did. Not nightmares exactly, just the same images arriving each night. A room filled with sleeping strangers, soft blue light, a long hallway, people arranged carefully in pairs across apartment carpet. Somewhere far down the hall, an elevator chimed once and went quiet. Each dream ended the same way. Someone walking slowly between the sleeping couples, counting quietly under their breath. The number never clear, the counting never finished. Upon waking, he could not immediately locate himself. The room would reassemble slowly. Window, ceiling, the amber of the city. And he would lie still and feel the particular wrongness of a body that has been somewhere else, coming back. One night he could not get back to sleep. He lay there listening to the building, the HVAC, the elevator somewhere below, a microwave beeping in a unit down the hall. Then another, a floor above. Then a third, farther away. He lay still and counted to 12. Nothing more. He got up and drank a glass of water and went back to bed, and did not mention it in the morning. The city announced another decline in suicide statistics that winter. Record improvements. The Wellness Index published photographs of paired residents, smiling, rested, standing in kitchens like the one James and Lena shared. One evening, while they cooked together beneath the apartment's soft amber lights, Lena cutting vegetables, James watching the water come to boil, she went quiet for a long moment. She set the knife down. I threw away half my contacts last week. What? I don't know. I just looked at them and couldn't remember why I kept them. He looked at her. She picked the knife back up. She left the sentence there, the way she had started doing, leaving sentences open at the end. He watched steam gather on the kitchen window. I don't know. I think I stopped needing it to have an answer. She looked at him for a moment. Then she kept cutting. They cooked the rest of the meal without speaking, and it was not uncomfortable. The apartment held the temperature exactly where they both needed it. That night, unable to sleep, James stood alone by the living room window overlooking the city. Thousands of apartment towers glowed softly in coordinated nighttime hues. Warm amber, soft gold, comforting blue. Every tower the same temperature, all of them as far as he could see. Behind him, Lena slept on the couch. Her breathing was quiet and regular. The apartment dimmed around him gradually as his pulse lowered. He had stopped noticing it do that. Earlier that night, he had opened the opt-out form. The first screen asked whether his current pairing created distress. He selected no. The second asked whether he believed continued co-residence might negatively affect his social autonomy. He read the question twice. The screen waited. Nothing on it moved. Behind him, Lena shifted on the couch. The apartment lowered the music 1 degree, almost below hearing. James closed the form without submitting it. He picked up his phone once, not to call anyone exactly. He opened the contacts, then closed them before the list finished loading. He thought about the spare light bulbs in the hall closet. The box he had carried from apartment to apartment for years, through the breakup, through the move, through the 3 days he had spent changing every bulb by hand, because he needed light to feel like a decision he had made. He had not opened that closet since Lena arrived. He was not sure he remembered why he had kept them. Below, the fog over the canals sat very still. He was not unhappy. He had not been unhappy in some time. That was difficult to hold against anything. Lena shifted behind him, a small sound, half breath. He turned to look at her, the outline of her under the blanket, her face turned toward the back of the couch. He looked at her for longer than he meant to. He turned back to the window. The elevator down the hall arrived at his floor. He had not heard anyone press the button. The doors opened. A moment passed. The doors closed. He looked at his own reflection in the glass, the city behind it glowing. His reflection was faint. The city was brighter. He touched the glass once with 2 fingers. It was cold. He did not move. The building breathed around them both, refrigerator cycling, ventilation turning, the slow tick of the structure in the cold. Outside, in towers he could count but never reach, other windows held other figures, or held no one, or held the same amber light regardless. He let his hand fall. The city held its light.
You are listening to The Quiet Pairs. Sweet dreams.